Welcome to the Wolff Den, presented by Winnigan Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Jon Henderson in the den. Welcome to the show.
My dude, your intro is on point. On point.
It's old. I need to update it, but I like it. I do like it.
It pops. It's rad, bro.
Yeah, I like it.
Show. I cuss a bunch, so that's cool, right?
No, I think we're allowed to, as far as I know. No one's listening anyway, but I haven't heard yet. So right. I think we're good with that. Welcome to the Wolff Den. For those who don't know who you are, give us a quick intro and then let's get into it.
So my name's Jon Henderson. I own a festival production company. I'm part of a team that has been orchestrating events for the last 19 years. We're responsible for bringing well over 1 million people into the South Jersey market. We specialize in lifestyle events, food, beverage, lifestyle, concerts, conventions. We bring about $20 million a year to the South Jersey market. We make a living throwing really rad fucking parties, man.
Yeah. Your flagship event is the Atlantic City Beer and Music Festival. Yep. And that's at Bader Field. You see the information here. You can get ticket information at acbeerfest.com. And I was actually meant to grab the tickets that we did for you for that event. And of course, I wasn't prepared. But anyway, excited.
Hey, bring me 2 tickets, please.
Excited about that event. It's a beer festival, right? I mean, it's a beer festival with music. Is that safe to say?
So the core piece of it, you have printed these tickets. At Ticket Time Machine, these tickets were secured and printed and rushed to my door affordably and in a timely manner.
And those are for admission. So let's start there. Why printed tickets? Because everyone's going away from printed tickets with digital. We love it, but these are actually admission tickets. They will get you into the events. Why is printed tickets a big thing for you guys for this event?
Bit of nostalgia, a bit of things in hand. You'd be surprised how many people want a physical ticket still. And it's not even fucking old heads like us, man. It's kids, it's these youths who they're like the collectibles. It's the same reason they're going back and buying vinyls. It's one thing we get a lot of is, when we take the ticket or we scan the ticket, can I have that back? I want to put this in my scrapbook. Of course, man. I would love for something I created to be part of your callback to memories, 30 years from now. You can't do that with a digital ticket. You delete your emails, whatever, your phone goes to shit. This is a real thing. This is a real tangible thing that, hopefully for us is attached to a rad memory you had that we were able to orchestrate. So, I will always, for as long as I live, we've been doing, I got hundreds of events that we've done. These are all tickets that, we've produced. I believe in a hard ticket, man, and I'm an advocate for what you do because we need these things. I think memories, people are just so quick. I'm terrified of AI. People are so quick to kind of jump on this whole, just email it to me, just do it this way. I'm not about it.
You also have a lot of good partners throughout the area who sell these tickets, and that makes it easier for them to do, right? They have it in hand. Someone comes in, they want to buy a ticket. We can give them a ticket.
So it's by design, right? For a couple different reasons. One, it's a sponsor opportunity. It allows the festival to really, when you build a festival, and I don't know, if you've really gotten the crux of this with folks, but when you build a festival, every moving part is essentially a co-op, right? And one of those pieces to, of course, offset cost to produce the festival is the ability to say to a retailer, a liquor retailer who sells beer, hey, we have this opportunity for you to sell tickets, and when you sell tickets, it's a draw to essentially, hey, man, you're here, you're buying tickets, you might as well get some of your favorite craft beer. And we really call out the breweries that participate in the shelf space at these liquor stores or retailers. So one, it generates revenue for both the festival and the retailer, but it also gives attendees the opportunity to save a couple bucks on those fucking service fees. Nobody wants to, and that's in our industry the one thing that people are getting crushed with is service fees. And if I've been doing this 19 years. If I go all the way back to when we first started doing festivals, I was very pro affordable festival. don't bang people over the head, give people the right experience, give them a multi-layered, multi-dimensioned experience, but and do it affordably. To be able to put tickets like this on sale for retail partners, or we do pop-up events where you can save on your fees, it gives that customer the opportunity to save a little cash and show them that, we're not this big live monster organization like Live Nation. We're real people. And, although these programs see 20, 30,000 people, it's a DIY group that's doing it. It's people with, that are involved in the community, and, and they see that it's real human beings versus the robots that are Live Nation and Ticketmaster.
Well, meanwhile, the Live Nation amphitheaters still will charge you a fee if you go to the box office and buy it. I used to just go to the box office and buy a bunch of tickets and save the fees, but now they'll still charge you a fee there. It's
gross. It's gross. It's funny because, like, when you come to our gates for any one of our events, the only thing you pay is taxes. That's all you pay, the taxes. Like, you get there, it's like, yo, you're here, slide your card, give us cash. You're paying the taxes on top of it. There's no fee.
I don't understand. Here's what I don't understand also, and StubHub does it, but I guess it depends on the consumer. I believe the average consumer is uneducated or doesn't care, and so I hate that StubHub. Why do I care what your ticket costs without the fees that you're automatically going to charge? Why would I care about that? If I'm going to send something, I'm just going to give you the price so you know what it is. Mm-hmm. And they very easily could avoid all that hassle with the fees if they just said, here's the price of the ticket.
Yeah.
And that's what the ticket costs.
Oh, and built it in and just bake it into the cost, 100%. Right. And a lot of times, you want to come off like, and we kind of tiptoed around that a little bit. Like, just put, all in, it's $87, right? It's the taxes, it's the fees, but we go back to your point. We want to educate our consumer. Like, our ticket costs X amount of dollars, but there are other things at play. The government, Uncle Sam, they got to get their paper. These ticket companies who are essentially footing the bill for the software and the programming and the ability for you to buy tickets in your underwear, they got to get paid too. It's just, we come from a place that it has to be a realistic cost, and we have, post-COVID, the Ticketmaster thing was a big contention for us because I wanted everybody, like, we're postponing the festival. We're not canceling, but we're postponing. And I want everybody to be able to get their money back because we don't know how hard at times it's going to be for people. And if, they bought a pair of tickets and it's $130 and that $130 helps them keep their lights on, feeds their kids, whatever, man, that's their money. We didn't do our job yet. Give them their fucking money back. Yeah. And Ticketmaster was like, well, that's not the industry standard. I'm like, well, fuck your industry. You're a bunch of scumbags. Like, if I needed that loot and I wanted that loot, give me my fucking loot back. And we took a very, very hard stance on it. So much so that, it was like, listen, if this has got to go to litigation, man, I'm down to roll, and let's go. We sell millions and millions of dollars in tickets with you guys. It's time to, do the right thing. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And it was weird because then I reached out and had a conversation with this company, that Universe, that ended up being an offshoot of Ticketmaster. Yeah. But it was like, if you had a family dynamic and you had one son who was essentially the Winklevoss twins, right? Just straight up fucking douchebags. But then you had this younger son who was like, man, I care about the environment and the people and, that's what Universe is as an arm of a Ticketmaster. It's like Ticketmaster has a human side. They call it Universe. And as a festival organizer and promoter, I can activate everything on that. I can, the refunds, the ticketing fees, kind of all of that. And the ticketing fees are literally a fraction of what they are through Ticketmaster. So it's like, because we were going to start our own ticketing platform. It was like, all right, fuck it. Let's start our own ticketing platform.
So that's what the Savannah Bananas did that.
Yeah.
Started their own ticketing platform. I was going to mention it when that Universe is, of course, a part of Ticketmaster. I think you were the first customer that I worked with Universe, and they're a great partner of ours. Because they handle the back end of it, and some of their people want tickets, and we've done very well with them, and had a lot of positive feedback with them as a organization. But it is weird that, like, you're related or it's parent company or your sister company, and it's just a totally different environment.
Better thing. It's like you created this monolith of a thing that now people look at as almost evil, right? Like, I mean, let's call it what it is, like this big kind of cash grabby fucking monster, and on the same of that, you spawned a baby Godzilla over here that's fucking smelling roses and flowers and helping little old ladies across the street. It's like, what? But all right, I'll hang out with that monster. Cool. And these things always change, as an event producer. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this forever. We've gone through a bunch of different ticketing systems, and we'll probably go through a bunch more, until, for us, it's always very consumer centric. We pay attention to what the consumer wants. And that's very much kind of the part of the recipe for our success is we listen to our consumer. We pay attention, we are our consumer. So, we'll jump in to talk about some other events, but to watch how poorly things get done from other producers, it's like, you're not listening to your audience. You're not kind of saying, hey, here's what my audience has to say, and kind of leaning into that, because as much as they'll turn on you is also as much as they'll protect you. So you've got to, it's just knowing the room, man.
It's not so sticky, the software, which is what I like about these software programs. Like, they're not trying to be like, hey, once we get you in, it's going to be such a mess to try and get something else, which actually holds them accountable and makes them having to adjust and adapt and invent, new stuff as the new technology comes on, because otherwise you're going to go elsewhere. And there's a lot of choices, companies you never heard of, some of the bigger ones that you have heard of, and there's positive and negatives about each. But at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to customer service, and that's what a lot of events come down to, is customer service. How do you handle stuff, when it goes south, and which, who knows? You're in an event world. My sisters, you have no idea. You plan everything, and day of comes and all hell breaks loose. Who knows what it could be?
It's a very Wizard of Oz kind of vibe, right? It's the man behind the curtain and the kind of all the moving parts, and people don't want to see the moving parts. And at the end of the day, we don't want people to see the moving parts because it affects kind of their perception of the experience. We want you to get in and just experience what we have to offer, and whatever the subject matter is. And we're really proud of that. We do everything on kind of multi-dimensional lanes, right? We know that, if we just did something that was just a beer fest and it was solely table beer, that gets old fast. Or just a food festival, it's just eat, that gets old fast. So what we do is we want to keep you there longer. We want to keep you engaged longer. So we do everything in layers, right? So then, you tend not to look behind that curtain. You're trying to be like, oh, I got to go do this. Oh, I got to do this. And you're smiling and you're Instagramming and you're doing kind of all the things that we wanted you to do while we're doing our jobs, curating that experience for you.
Yeah, and it gets back to the question I asked before. At the core, you guys are a beer festival that has ridiculous food options and great music entertainment.
Core subject is beer, right? And that's like every program is going to have a core subject. Music festivals, it's music. We in 2012 decided as a beer festival that, so we were the first real beer festival in the state of New Jersey, and really on the East Coast. I mean, the festivals, this is its 17th year. It would have been 18, had not for COVID, and we were one of the first, and it was cool. I mean, at the first, beer fest, we had 25 breweries, right? When craft beer wasn't a thing, we were pretty much ahead of the cusp of craft beer. And then as it started to kind of do the thing, I had been producing a tattoo expo. I'd worked with the Food Network. I'd done with a bunch of really cool kind of lifestyle event things. I spotted the need to evolve and create more of a lifestyle event. Like, yeah, beer's awesome, but let's spend more time with the people who make it. Let's create programs around them. And then let's talk about, stylistically what beer is and, why it does what to your body. And then it was like, well, if it's going to do stuff to your body, let's bring in some music so your body moves and dances. And then let's bring in activities, and let's really kind of call to action for local restaurants. And then it turned into, if you had told me in 2000, and when I started 2006, that it was going to be kind of one of the biggest linchpin beer festivals in the country, I would have told you you're smoking crack. Like, yeah, it's not going to be a real thing. And now, what the event has done for a region, right? The economic impact for this piece alone is a little over $10 million, but it also allows for us to really highlight local culinary. Going back, and beer's kind of always been the anchor, and kind of drink better beer and celebrate the people who create it. But there's so many other opportunities to highlight other things, especially as, things in lifestyle kind of equate, like, hey, I'm into sneakers and I'm drinking a beer while checking out my new kicks on the internet, and this is launching and I'm having a beer, da da da. And it allowed us to kind of reach out to like another buddy of mine who does these cool sneaker shows and be like, yo, Just Nice, you want to come highlight some sneakers while people are drinking beers? Oh yeah, I want to do that. And hey, do you want to play laser tag while you're getting to drink some beers? Oh yeah, I want to do that. And you want to do crazy horse races while we're trying and come and supporting beers? Oh yeah, we want to do that. Oh, do you want to see the Dropkick Murphys or 311 while you're celebrating beers? Oh fuck, I want to do that too. And so we just create these levels that create excitement. Like when we build events, I look at it like Christmas, right? Christmas, and you've noticed if you look at our portfolio of well over a dozen events, we don't repeat anything. We don't do Atlantic City Beer Festival, fucking this beer festival over here. That we do one program. We treat it like Christmas. We put a year's worth of effort, we put it in the oven, we give it its TLC, we really bake it, core subject matter for this event being beer, and then we kind of surround it with all this kind of great stuff, and then we drop it on the public. And every year I get people who are, and you see our social media, and I'm very proud of it. Every year we get people who are psyched. I'm doing a photo shoot in the beginning of the festival for a couple that met at Beer Fest that are going to get engaged and doing their wedding, their engagement photos at Beer Fest. I'm going to get ordained so I can actually do weddings next year at Beer Fest. Like little things that, people we know over the years have kind of jumped on board with, met their spouses, started their business, all because of this thing that the core subject was beer.
It's easier than you think to get ordained to marry people.
It really is.
Yeah. My wife does it.
Does she?
Yeah, she's done a few, like 2 or 3 for friends. Yeah, she's good at it too. But it's to get the license, you got to figure out how to do it right and make it a good memory and moment. But to get the license itself is pretty easy. I say the food is like. You can't just drink beer. You have to have food on there, right? I started going to beer festivals down in South Florida when I moved here almost 25 years ago. And these were like great events. It wasn't crowded at all. People weren't onto this yet. It was sort of at the beginning of the craft beer scene. And they used to give the food away. The people used to come, Dave and Buster's would come with quesadillas, and these people would come with wings. Hooters would come with wings. And they wanted to get the exposure. And as it got bigger, now they started to have food trucks and food vendors. Now you have to buy, so the beer is free. And a few of them had some music. And I all along thought, I want to throw a beer festival. I think I can throw a beer festival. And one of the years I went around talking to all the vendors and everyone and giving my information, telling them, hey, if I threw one, but as I was getting a little more drunk gradually as I'm going around the scene, and I was ready to do it. And I'll tell you, I hit a roadblock sort of with like the security and some other things. Then I just let it go. And now these beer festivals that they have down here are like, they're pretty big, but I don't think they're run that way. They're selling too many tickets. The lines are too long. They don't necessarily have music. A few of them did. So to offer this whole big thing, which is what festivals need to do anyway, is it's the right way to go, because some people can't drink for 3 hours, even as they're small samplings. You come, you have a couple of drinks, and you want to, like, now what?
So what happens is, and it's a real thing, and you'll never hear, and it's weird because I say it all the time, and you don't hear a lot of beer festival producers say it because it's taboo. And there's a reason that we kind of create kind of these, we'll have 14 different restaurants that are all, they're all endemic to here, right? Because, the festival ultimately is, a taste of what the area has to offer, because we want to give you a reason to come back. But as you're walking around, and we've got 100 different breweries offering over 400 different beers. Never going to drink all that beer. It's just not going to do it, right? But what you also experience is a thing called palate fatigue. As you start to drink and say, all right, I'm going to start with, high ABV beers, you're going to burn your palate out, right? You're going to burn it out to where you get to the things that are, a little lighter, have a little more complexity. Your palate's burnt out, so you're done, right? So we like to have a barrage of things that offset you just drinking, right? We want you to go and eat with these restaurants, and our culinary lineup is fantastic. We bring in 14 of the region's best actual brick and mortar restaurants, food trucks, casino partners, and they sell food at an affordable rate, and it's fucking good food, man. You're like, holy shit, I had this. And And we do food festivals, we do other kind of festivals that kind of talk to the culinary piece in this region. But what I always kind of challenge people to do is, if you're trying a restaurant's food that's a brick and mortar restaurant, and you're trying it in a festival environment, and the food is good on concrete or in a field somewhere, imagine what that food's like in that brick and mortar restaurant where they've honed that dish. And it gives you a reason to go back and say, all right, I had this from Essel's at Beer Fest, and now I want to go to the restaurant because I want to eat that in the restaurant. It's like, it helps us, it moves commerce, but it also introduces people to kind of the flavors in Atlantic City. So yeah, to your point, these are not easy tasks to put together. There are a lot of moving parts, and to just say, hey, run around and drink beer, you're doing your attendee a disservice.
Yeah. Almost 20 years. What was it like at the beginning? How did you get into this?
So at the time I was producing, so Beer Fest is about 17 years. Oh, well, we've been doing it for 18 years, but I was producing the Atlantic City Tattoo Expo. And we were one of the first large scale tattoo expos in the country, and really kind of having fun with it, and working for Caesars Entertainment as the director of business development, and had curated the Food Network, the Atlantic City Food Network Food and Wine Festival. I had went to a B2B beer event. That was, at the time it was like Michelob was launching their crafty beers, Magic Hat, Beck's was the thing. So the alternatives weren't actually as craft as they were kind of better beers that came from overseas or were starting to be brewed here. There were a few beers that were brewed here. Flying Fish was in the mix at the time. I went to this and tried it and said, from a consumer standpoint, right? And I'm thinking about a term you may or may not have heard, which came later, with the winification of beer. Just significantly more beer, more options, more flavor profiles, a complex kind of tasting format, to where, consumers were just in general getting smarter. We're evolving, right? People are evolving, their taste buds are evolving. It was no more Coors Light, Miller Lite, it was options, right? And people's palates were changing, with wine lovers and foodies, and kind of, so I thought, yeah, this is going to be something that I think people are going to really embrace. And, we got with the convention center and said, hey, we want to do this here. And people thought we were out of our minds. 100% thought we were out of them. From the legal standpoint, how do you sample, beers of X amount of people? And wine festivals kind of had a standard for well over fucking 20 years, man. Wine festivals have been forever. So I took the wine tasting guidelines and process, and kind of broke it down, but there wasn't a kind of a time limit, or they were always all day things. So I said, all right, well, let's do our first beer festival. And it was in March of 2006, and it was an 8-hour affair. 25 breweries. The ticket was $30, and we had saw 3,000 people. I was like, holy shit, this is kind of crazy, but people were getting just trounced, man. 8 hours of just beers that their body wasn't used to. That's when the kind of the ABV thing was kind of like, oh, it's not 4%, light beers now. It's like, oh, here's an 8%. And people were like, whoa, shit, and just knocking people's socks off. And we're like, holy shit, like, all right, it might be too long. Let's do it again, kind of tweak some things. And then we changed it to, the next year to a 6-hour program. And we went from 3,000 people to 5,500 people in a line around the fucking block of the convention center. I was like, didn't expect that, year over year growth was supposed to be 10 to 15%, and it exploded almost double.
But that's crowded. Did you get a lot of people complaining about the lines to get a tiny sample? Because that's crowded to me.
Yeah, it was, and at the time at that point, we were maybe 35, 40 breweries that were in the mix. So, people were waiting in line. They were waiting in line to get in, to scan people, ID people, kind of the whole process. And I was like, and I'm watching it going, no, this isn't it, man. There's the customer experience is suffering here. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and built these sessions, which is funny. The 4-hour session that you see at beer festivals across the country were started here in Atlantic City. And now everybody uses it, kind of that right kind of check the box. That started with this festival. That third year, we were like, all right, we need to break it up. But in breaking it up, we can give our breweries a break from pouring all day. We can give staff a break. We can swap over. We can sell more tickets in a controlled atmosphere. So now when we're doing 5,000, 6,000 people in 6 hours, we can do 3,000 people in 4, and then invite another 3,000 people for the next 4. And then, hey, we'll do one on Friday night and we'll invite 3,000 people to that. And it worked, man. It really worked. And how did we figure out to get all the lines in? Well, it was like, let's let everybody in at once. Let's convince everybody to show up a half an hour to an hour in advance. Let's scan them. Let's ID them. Let's get their wristbands on. Let's get their glasses. Let's get a bagpipe and some fun stuff to put them in this holding pen as they wait and build up this kind of pomp and circumstance of national anthem and talking to them and throwing clowns in the mix. And then when it's time to open the festival, slide the barrier open and let 3,000 people pour in. And it worked. We did 2 years of, we got to the point where we were 8,000 people, and we were crushing it. And then beer festivals started to try to pop up all over the place. People saw when I did it, it wasn't a revenue thing for me, because I was working a fantastic job, I was making a solid living. It was more about kind of like, oh, let's kind of delve into this culture that I love, which was craft beer, and the people who created it and the interesting personalities. Well, of course, people see the money, and the money was good. We were doing well. We weren't fucking crushing it. I wasn't driving Lamborghinis, but we were doing well, and we were kind of putting it out there. And the ABC from New Jersey came to us and said, listen, man, we're getting slammed with requests to produce beer festivals. People want to have these beer festivals all over the place, and we like your model. We want to use your model. I was like, oh shit, all right. Well, what do I ask for? Do I say, hey, you've got to pay me? Hey, you've got to, or do I use this as an opportunity to kind of have currency with the state of New Jersey? Like, put a pin in my hat. We're friends. I helped you with this. I'm developing other programs. Let's be on the same team. So I gave him my program. Like, you could have taken this book and from start to finish, curated your own fucking beer festival, and gave it to them. And they read through it and they're like, this is great. This is awesome. And I gave it to a gentleman who's a great dude. He's since retired, Wes Geisel. And I was like, here's how to do it. Here's how we do our beer festival and what the standards should be. And self-servingly, knowing that at this point we were so ahead of everybody else, I kind of put some triggers in there, right? One of the things was I believed that we are charging an attendee to be here. At the time, every beer festival was trying to get these breweries to donate their beer. Like, hey, create this product, make this product, then give it to us under the guise of exposure. Bullshit, right? Just give us free beer so we can make some money. I had figured out that if I figured out what the consumption rate was per person and built it into the cost, right? So, every person drinks X amount of dollars worth of beer. Let's build that into the ticket price and compensate these breweries for the work that they do. So not only is it an opportunity to promote your product, but there is a break even, or at least an ROI involved. Right?
Yeah. The funny thing is, when I first started, the breweries would go for free. The restaurants would go for free and give it. And so it was early on when I started to ask them. Everyone was okay with that except one brewery, which is outrageous that this was the brewery. It was PBR. It was the only one who said, no, you got to pay us to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the model now, of course, is some festivals will charge table fees to offset costs and things, and we do that, right? And breweries don't like it, but for our festival, I also spend $500,000 on your product a year. So I'm one of the biggest movers of craft beer all year long, and I'm 2 days, right? So we do get a great buy-in from some of the breweries who really understand. Now there's a level of arrogancy with some breweries, like, we don't pay table fees and we still want you to buy our beer, and it's like, listen, man, you've got your model, we've got ours, but there's an economic program in play that everybody benefits from. So I sent that, and that was part of the guidelines. Plus, it should include local restaurants. In the thing that I designed for the ABC, I must have misspelled restaurants incorrectly. It spell checked, fixed it, and spelled it as restraints. So I sent this over to the state of New Jersey, and they love it, and we're going to post it, and the director's signing off on it. And these are the guidelines for beer festivals in the state of New Jersey. So I go through and I read it, and I start laughing. And I call Wes, and I'm like, yo, my dude, said, feel good about kind of lending a hand and, kind of creating law or whatever you want to call it. I was like, but I need you to fix my fucking spelling, bro. So I don't copy and paste, and the director signed off. So now that it's on law, everybody has to have local restraints. It was like, he's like, what? It was like, it's supposed to be local restaurants. You want to involve local restaurants?
No regrets. No regrets.
Yeah, the same exact fucking thing. So it was great. It was rad. It was kind of a funny moment. But then you saw, the guidelines start to be adapted by Pennsylvania, and it just started doing this, across the country. They were no longer these long 6-hour ordeals, 8-hour ordeals. They were quick shot, 4-hour opportunity for discovery events that, I'm relatively proud of, and I see a new beer festival pop up on the other side of the country, and it's kind of these 4-hour window. And I'm like, I did that.
Did AC Beer Fest come before Good Time, or was Good Time
same time? They were the same time.
Yeah,
It
so
was
after you do that, you establish Good Time, and now you decide, let's do some other events too, because we got our feet wet. We understand a little bit in the event. Obviously, everything's a little bit different, and trial and error, which is as you go. Like,
so my role
here is,
I've always been a very there's a process for everything kind of guy. When I see things, I see them as a process. When I see it, I kind of see all the moving parts just by, I don't know how to explain it. When you see something, I automatically, like, I'm terrible to go to a concert, a festival, and I'm terrible to go with, because I walk in and I see kind of everything, that's not like everybody having fun, everybody, and the same thing so I'm an expert in business development. When I walk into a business, I automatically, by default, start to kind of break down the moving parts of the business. It's how I was trained. It's what I went to school for. It's, I ran business development for one of the biggest casino corporations in the world, right? So, you learn to kind of falling into the festival world or festival production world kind of made sense, because I understood that kind of every cause, everything, cause and effect, understanding budgeting, understanding human experience, what people need, what gets people out of their houses, and understood kind of all those little pieces. It was no surprise to anybody that, as I kind of got into my world, this is where I ended up.
How important is the music? Because there's a lot of events here. They used to have good music acts, even though music wasn't the original thing, and they've sort of since gone to acts I've never heard of, which, by the way, that doesn't mean they can't be good, but I'm a pretty big music junkie. If I haven't heard of your band and you're the headline for it's probably not, the fans are not going to be happy with the lineup. So how important is it, and how hard is it to get, two, let's call them, they're B acts, right? These are B level acts that were way popular back in the day, more popular back in the day.
Anybody that's over $100,000 is not a B act, right?
No. Okay.
Anybody who sells more than 3,000 tickets is not a B act, right? And that's, you got to look at it. If somebody can sell upwards of 3,000 tickets, that's an A-line headliner. That's a headliner, right? And that's kind of how we looked at it. It's funny. We take this weird approach to kind of music and entertainment in general. You want to kind of hit the button that kind of piques people's interest because they know that band, right? I know this band. Dropkick Murphys has this hit from this song, 311. I was in high school for it. If you can see how we book, right, you can tell who I'm talking to at this festival. But we also trickle in, and you'll hear me say it a lot of times, my staff fucking hates it, opportunity for discovery. We owe it to kind of our attendee base to give them something that they haven't heard and or seen before. And if we can use a band like Dropkick Murphys or 311 or Alkaline Trio or the Menzingers or Saves the Day or Taking Back Sunday or Flogging Molly or Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, see all the shout outs. And we booked all these bands at this festival. It's part of Bouncing Souls. It's a picture above my desk. It's the first act that we ever booked. It was Bouncing Souls for this festival. And it was amazing, right? So if we can use these acts, yes, they're hugely important, but they're also a catalyst for attendees to discover new music, right? And we owe it to an attendee. And listen, attendees want to say, oh, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one. And they go through, music festivals and they know all these lineups. Or to your point, if I see this band I've never heard of, chances are everybody's going to be mad about it. I think what we've gotten away from, it's there and it's subliminal, and festival producers do it. Is this opportunity for discovery where you kind of go to the show and you're like, oh, this band rages. I love this fuck. Who's this band? And you find yourself SoundClouding or whatever that thing is, or Googling, or
I agree. I agree with that, but you guys are a one band per day is different than if I have some headliners.
We're 12 bands per day. We just don't. Yeah, we don't jam it down your throat. We do that opportunity for discovery. So, like, if you look at the main stage, is going to have 3 acts, right, each day, and then our sub stages are going to have 4 to 6 acts as well, right? So we kind of pump in, local music because we want you to meet and understand local producers, right? We want you to get on page with that, and other genre musics. Like we've got Dentist opening. Dentist is one of the opening acts for Dropkick. Dentist is an amazing Asbury Park band, man, and and they're starting to get hot. We've got Phone Boy opening for 311. They just sold out House of Independence. People don't know who Phone Boy is, but they're still selling out venues like House of Independence. So, where your headliners are important, or that hook. Let's call it that. That's what it is. It's your headliners are your hook. When you get these major music festivals, they give you a bunch of hooks, and then all this opportunity for discovery down here. Because our timeline is only 4 hours, right? Each session or each day, my hook can only be so big. Then I can feature the other stuff. And if you're discovering your next craft beer and Dentist or Phone Boy or one of these new acts that come out of the region kind of catch your attention, and you download their music or you follow them on Spotify, man, we did our job. Did it cost us, anything? Not really, for you to discover music or for you to find a new band. But, those bands can point back to a festival like the Atlantic City Beer and Music Festival and say, hey, we did this festival. And it was really kind of the start to us doing something rad.
Yeah, Dropkick Murphys are playing Sunfest this year down here in West Palm, but they swapped them with Ziggy Marley from Sunday to Saturday, and I'm probably going to maybe go Sunday, so I'm going to miss them here. But great band, 311. I mean, they got their own cruise.
Yeah,
they got their own cruise with 6-man, and they do a great job with that. 18 years. Give me the biggest changes, the biggest obstacles that you've had over the years. And obviously every year is a little bit different. You get a little bit smarter and you figure it out. At this point, I'm sure a lot of it is, you have it rolling, but obviously as you're in the event, that's when stuff happens. But for the planning of the event, you've done it a bunch of times, but what was really from the beginning to now, the biggest change through planning this event or any of the events?
So, I mean, we're curating 12 big events a year, right? We're talking to 150,000 people, convincing them that, we're going to create the experience that's worth buying a ticket for, and trust us with your time, right? So, people, right? The industries change, the craft beer industry changes, the music industry changes, even the kind of on-site vendor activation scene changes, the people change, your audience ages up, your audience ages in, your audience ages out. So you're constantly kind of playing this, relevancy game, right? Is the music relevant? Is craft beer relevant? Is Halloween relevant? Is seafood relevant? Are tattoos relevant? Is micro wrestling relevant? And how do you put these pieces together? Do they want to see circus acts at a beer show? Do they want to see sword swallowing at a Halloween event? Do they want to, and then you start kind of figuring out and you pay attention to your audience. The festival, in order to really kind of sustain in this event, you've got to be able to predict change, right? The beer industry is going through some stuff, right? And we know that there's still a demand for better beer, and there's still that demand to discover it. And the seltzer industry, popping up, kind of punch the beer industry in the nose because people are trying to get healthier right off of this COVID thing, and having to kind of alter from having indoor events to making those events outdoor events, and then figuring out, well, now that we've been outside for so long, does the consumer want to go back inside? Do they like it inside? So really, we shift with kind of what our audience tells us, right? And I think a lot of show producers, Live Nation included, and we'll probably get on some of it, but a lot of them try to force feed their customer what they think they want. Right.
Does that change after the fact? I mean, you almost don't know it until you're there and you don't have something that people ask for a lot of times. Like,
you can see it coming. It's weird. If you're as in deep, so we're very immersed in kind of the lifestyle that is whatever culture for a program that we do. We do our homework. We take a year to program an event, right? If it's an event that's going to move 7,000 to 30,000 people, we really look at it under a microscope and saying, all right, well, this is what went really well, at the event the previous year, and this is what people liked, and this is what they kept looking over the fence at, and we know it's coming, and how are people partying, and that doesn't go away. That doesn't happen in a year and then just fizzle out, right? You can kind of see parts that are getting less and less interesting to people because it's just the activation is less. So you swap it out. Everything that we've learned, if you can make people smile, you're going to keep an audience. If they're Instagrammable moments and people share them, let them share their experience and kind of sit behind that and kind of push that up. To your next audience, so they can say, oh, that looks like a lot of fun, I want to do that. And if we only go year to year to year to year without phasing things out, people are going to miss opportunity and experience.
What is something that surprised you that it was so popular, and how about something that you thought would be more popular that just didn't hit?
So something that would be more popular that didn't hit, festivals, and somebody's going to steal this because I'm saying it on your show and we've done it a couple times. Festivals inadvertently ignore the porta potty experience. Sounds funny, right? They just think, fuck, there's shit boxes in a corner. Let's make sure nobody sees them. Let's make sure they're just fucking out of their way. And it's a necessity. Like if you're at a consumption event, be it beer, food, whiskey, wine, you're gonna have to pee. You're gonna have to take shit. You're gonna have to. It's a thing, So how do you make that experience obvious and fun at the same time? And we had put a series of comedians and whatnot, and we surrounded them by these porta potties, just a giant sign that just said shitty jokes. And we let attendees kind of jump on stage, and we had people kind of blocking people and making them tell jokes before they went in, and it was the more somebody had to pee, the funnier it got. And then we had people with referees at the porta potties fucking flagging people in, flagging people out, kind of creating an experience out of the porta potty thing. And it just, it wasn't as, we did it for 2 years, and it wasn't as, I thought it might have been too smart for the consumer.
Yeah,
right.
awesome.
It was more of a, and some people leaned into it and had a blast, but something. And maybe I overestimated how, when you have to pee, you're really ready to fight a dude, right? So that was one that I was like, that didn't take. 16 years, 17, 18, 14 or 15 years ago, I had saw a program overseas on YouTube before YouTube was massive what it was, and it was silent disco.
Oh man, I was going to ask you about that. I had it at my wedding. It's the greatest thing ever.
So I have my tech guy, Doug, is a very talented individual. And I said, look at what I found. We need to figure out how to create this, and because it wasn't readily available, it was not a thing that existed. I said, we have DJs, our booking agency Near Dark, has some of the best DJs in the region. And at the time did 100%. And I said, let's figure out how to do this, and at the time it was very techie. So, Doug figured out if we could get some wireless headphones and some FM modulators and tie it all in, and at the time now, it's a box, it's this big that plugs into the DJ, and it was a giant robot. Like we had bunny ears and Buck, and I said, this is a thing and people are going to love it. And people doubted it. They're like, no. And we had 50 headphones. I still have a box of these fucking headphones. We had 50 headphones and kind of set it up and watched people. And that year, I'm watching people come through and they're taking notes. People that were techie people. People weren't there for, it is not uncommon for us to have people walking around our festival with notes, taking pictures.
Oh, of course. You should. You should every festival and see what competition is doing or how I can better it out.
Yep, and it was that, and we watched how we market get bogarted, and how we've literally, because we've been doing this as a festival production company longer than most professional festival companies out there. We've got almost 20 years under our belt, hundreds and hundreds of events, well over 1 million people. So when we created this little thing, we knew it was a thing. And it was like, do we lean into it and try to own it? And then, and somebody on my team was like, we need to own it. I was like, how can we own it when I found it on YouTube and bogarted it from somebody else? Like, we can't own that. I found it and said, this is a good idea. Let's figure out how to do it. That guy figured it out. I just followed suit and figured it out as well. And then it turned into a thing, right? The first time I saw it as a thing that wasn't us was GABF. And I was like, you motherfuckers. And then it just started to pop up. And then, like now we own our own, whole setup of, headphones and modulators and that are this big and easily compactable. So yeah, I mean, the silent disco was one that I knew was going to be a banger. And to this, it's still a banger.
Fun, a great addition to anything, to any event. I think, again, I told you we had it at our wedding for the last hour. We had a DJ, and then he did silent disco for the last hour. People never heard of it. It was, even just the older people just sitting at the table with the earphones on and changing.
Yeah,
a great addition to the event. I want to talk about craft beer for a little bit. What's your beer? What kind of beer drinker are you?
So I'm all over the map, right? I am a opportunity for discovery guy, right? I want to try something new. I want to try something complicated. I want to lift up the people in my region who are doing it. I shy away from, big box breweries. I just do. I've been on a perpetual sour kick for about 3 years.
That's my thing, sours. I can't do IPAs, but I like a good sour.
There are people reinventing an IPA now that I think, the IPA is going to make a resurgence. It's going to be a cleaner IPA. It's going to lean towards a Pilsner that's more drinkable, less burn, less hoppiness. I lean, like, if it's not a sour and I'm eating, beer goes with everything. I will, sour, I'll not with a meal, but when I'm eating, I try to find the closest true Belgian wit that exists.
Yeah, I'm a Belgian. It must be the palate, because I'm a Belgian guy too. Yeah. Belgian beer, and then the sours, no IPAs, no real. That's what I find when I go to a lot of these breweries is that they really just offer generic IPA, generic,
You got to start going to better breweries, my dude.
No, I'm saying a lot of them are. The ones I go to are, Tripping Animals, Miami, who got ridiculous amount of sours. I was just at Tailgate Brewery in Nashville, even their IPAs have some sort of flavor to it. The Funky Doodle down here, which is, I think you have to do that because that's the experience, is going to a brewery, not just sort of going to have a beer, which you can almost get in anywhere in a supermarket. So I think that's the breweries have to shy away from just having these generic, IPAs and stouts and golden and red and stuff like that. Brown.
It's like anything from a culinary standpoint, from a curation or creation standpoint, right? It's like create better things, create things that make people talk, create things. And I think the breweries that really stand out are the breweries that are not afraid to push the envelope a little bit. It's like it's still flavorful, it's still beer, but it's complicated, and it's a callback to an OG fucking Pilsner, or a lager, and it's crisp and it's done right and it's refreshing, and it's like you see. Very much like the event world, you see that they put the time to really create a product and love behind it, and it's consistent and it's delicious.
You find that there's a lot of people who drink Bud and Coors and Mick Ultra that still come to this event, because my friends do that and they still will go to these events. They'll just try, whatever.
No, it's so we do 2 events that really central around drinking, right? One is, of course, the Atlantic City Beer and Music Festival. Its sole purpose is to kind of lift up beer. But we put so many little, so many fun things to do, or these opportunities to do things that, even the guys who are like, I kind of drink beer, but, I want to go to this party, they find, and they always walk away with something. They always have a takeaway that, I tried this. And when somebody says, what's the first thing I should do when I get to a beer festival? It's like, all right, well, essentially know your own palate, right? Don't go drinking something, or, you're not out to drink something you're not going to like, right? You've already probably, if you've been to a beer festival, you've probably experienced some craft beer to an extent. So don't go back to what you've already discovered, but kind of make new friends and kind of go opportunity for discovery. I say it a punch. It's because I swear by it, right?
But it's small. I mean, there's small samples, so you can take a chance on something and not feel. When I go to these things, I take a chance on something and not feel like, hey, I just bought a $10.
You're talking from a financial obligation. Yeah, no, you don't have a financial. I bought a bottle. You're saying it's like a 2-ounce sample. You try it. You're like, all right, that's drinkable. I like this. Let's jot that down, put it in our phone, take a picture of their sign, right? Um, I think that's, from these guys who drink these light beers, I think what we do well is we kind of introduce them to something that they might not have had before, and
Yeah.
we give it to them in a setting that's fun and interactive. And we do the same thing with an event we call Witchcraft, which is a beer festival. It's a spirits festival. It's a craft beverage experience set and focused around Halloween. And it's called Witchcraft, not from spooky witchcraft. Yes, it's that, but it's also plays to the which craft do you prefer? Do you prefer craft spirits? Do you prefer craft beer, crafted seltzers, wines? And we do it all on the umbrella of, Halloween with mazes and kind of these haunted house experiences while you get to try, these different products.
I was at the brew at the zoo, which Miami used to do at the zoo, and the last one I went, it's been a while. Arrested Development played great act for a beer festival.
Yeah, they have one in Philly too.
The best drink I had was the Cigar City apple pie cider. It was, so I was like, and it was like the third thing I tasted. I'm like, there's nothing here that's going to be better than this all day.
Yeah. Now it's when you find that little bit of kind of, it's like a vacation in your mouth, you're trying things and it's like, oh, that's a beer. That's a good beer. That's a good beer. Like, and you can find the similarities, and then you try something that's just so outside of the box, it clicks in your head. I bet you bought that afterwards, didn't you?
Oh, we have this is years later. I have them in my fridge. I have another friend where the birthday party, the anniversary parties for the brewers are big down here. And my friend who drinks Mick Ultra all the time, I'm like, well, what do you want? He's like, just get me a beer. And you go to a bar, you can't just ask for a beer. So I bring him back a jalapeno blonde, and he takes one sip of this, and he got all pissed off. I'm like, tell me what you want. I don't know what you want. I mean, it's a brewery. They don't have Mick Ultra here.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably could have figured it out, but anyway, you can't just ask for a beer. You got to ask specifically for what do I want.
You got to know your palate.
Tell people what you don't want too.
Yeah.
This is your third year at Bader Field.
So third year at Bader, we made that transition post COVID, right? You had to make, people, and I still think there's a big section of the audience that just aren't ready to go back inside yet. And do we tickle the opportunity to go back inside for 24? Yeah, of course we're talking through it, but then, we're never going to abandon the outdoor vibe either, because the outdoor vibe is a good vibe, especially with like a 311 vibe. So we're talking through some programs, to be both inside and outside in 24, but I love the festival outside, as it feels very festival-like. It's not in a big box. It's open air. You can see the skyline of the city. We're flying kites. The experience in itself is just, we moved it outside, and it was very, very uplifting.
Music and beer is better outside for me.
I mean, everything. Honestly, in my opinion, everything's better outside. I mean, right now the pollen's a bit of a problem. You can hear it in my nasalness, but yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Bamboozle Festival, which was supposed to have a reunion and take place at Bader Field. We've talked about it. Does that hurt you that if a festival was supposed to go? Would it have helped you if it went and didn't do well? I mean, there's not a lot of events at Bader Field that are big events like this, correct?
So we're the biggest event on Bader Field. It's funny. We were intimately involved from a communication standpoint. We know Jon. It was funny, before we jumped on the podcast, we were talking about, he tapped us on the shoulder at one point to talk about helping out and being a part of it. And our dance card was full. We had a lot coming on this year. It's not that I didn't have faith in the program. It's just that, as the guy who's been doing this for 20 years, you hear buzzwords, and you're like, I don't know. And then as it was getting closer and closer, we'd had some conversations, and, it was going south. And, the whole Scamboozle, kind of it all puts, and I was laying in bed the other night, yesterday, the day before, just thinking about kind of everything that went down. And, and I think I said it earlier, and when we were talking, is your consumers can be your best advocate, and your consumers can be your worst enemy. Right. And it's kind of managing expectations. I don't for a single second think that, and I might get burnt for this, but I'll say it out loud. I don't think for a single second Jon set out to bamboozle anyone.
Oh, I don't think so either. The people that we deal with and I don't think they did either. But I do think that there was a point, and it wasn't last week, that he knew this is not good, and then he kind of doubled and tripled down on it. How do you handle that?
I think I would never be in that situation. I think
Not that, but how do you handle some stuff that didn't go well with a customer? It's all about customer service. I say this because my first job with you went south. Someone on my fulfillment team didn't do what they were supposed to do, and you got a box of tickets that wasn't labeled correctly, and it took a little bit of time and effort out of you. But here we are, we're doing it again.
Well, because you acknowledge managing expectations is where the trapdoor hit Bamboozled. Managing and really knowing what you're capable of and what you're not capable of. So if you harken back to the days where he was involved in Bamboozled, the OG Bamboozled, right? He didn't control all the moving parts. He was a part of the giant cog that was Bamboozled. Now, X amount of years later, it's a different environment, right? Bands aren't the same bands they were. They cost significantly more. There's all these moving parts that I don't know that he forecasted. On top of that, he did a bad job of managing expectations, right? He could have done just as good without having canceling, spend a fraction of the money, but really kind of came through with, I know who's coming, and we're going to manage expectations. And here's who's coming. It's not $1 billion lineup, but it's a good, solid, we're going to get back to building what Bamboozled was in its core years, which was, I'm going to say it, that opportunity for music discovery. And,
I agree with that. The first thing I said when I had him on my show was, man, you came out guns blazing.
It didn't have to.
And promising the world. It didn't have to. Didn't have to.
And I think that
and you double and you triple down. And that's the thing. If you're going to say that we're going to do this, then you better bring it, because the internet is forever and it travels, and people will be upset about that, because the lineup itself was not terrible. It was weird, but it wasn't terrible if there wasn't all this, hey, we're going to have all this headliners and it's about how you manage expectations. So, being honest and transparent, like stuff that's out of your control, no one could ever fault you for that stuff. I mean, some people will, but the majority understands that.
I think
that's what you would do with your festival. If a band dropped.
I mean, we've had it. And I have and I get out there personally, here's where we're at. I am big on accountability for both the festival, but also accountability from the consumer standpoint. We let you cancel tickets. Like, if you don't want to be at my festival, leading up to the event, you have until we're 30 days before the event to cancel your tickets. At that point, when you decide to make a ticket, you are committing to come to my show, and I'm committing to giving you a hell of a show. Right. We're transparent in fees and kind of all of those things. And, we'll work with, we're not trying to create innovation off of the heels of something that's gimmicky, like an NFT. Like, innovation is awesome, but it was weird. There was a bunch of misses, and I think a lot of it comes down to kind of one individual's hubris, more so than, admitting defeat is hard for a lot of guys, especially coming off of, what was awesome and having a bunch of L's kind of in his pocket going, fuck, I've got to do something amazing. I think his hubris got in the way. I think the ability to succeed kind of clouded, what the customer was asking for. I think he got so far ahead of himself, he got into a pit, and he would have been better off doing it in Asbury Park, because it was an area he was familiar with. Like, you're trying to pop something up of this magnitude in a new space is a challenge, because you don't know how that new space works. When you initially come into a market and you say, we're going to see 50,000 people. Well, that market now says, okay, well, then you need to provide OEM, Office of Emergency Management, for 50,000 people. And that comes with a cost, right? And there's no mitigating that cost. This is what it costs when 50, and then you come back and you say, well, now I'm 10,000. Well, we're already geared up. We've set the tone for a city from an economic standpoint for 50,000 people that you, as a seasoned professional, told us that this was going to happen. So the backpedaling, it all snowballs. And
is there a market in Atlantic City for a big I know Jason's there. You got country. I mean, is that enough? Can you keep having more festivals?
So here's where festivals are valuable to the city of Atlantic City. Shoulder seasons. right? We are a market that is 4 months. And if you see pretty much every program we do for the most part is shoulder season. It's meant to extend or start the season earlier, right? Um, I think adjacent, did the city of Atlantic City a disservice, Live Nation, by being on a holiday weekend when the city of Atlantic City is going to be packed. Anyway, without adjacent, they did their attendee a disservice by putting it on a holiday weekend where your room rates are at a premium. That's a disservice. Um, the country music festival later in the season, still in the summer, those would have played very well in May and June. Those would have played very well September, October, and even November. Now that global warming's a thing, right? It's knowing what the market needs instead of jamming that square peg in a round hole. They say, okay, well, this time of year, hotel rates are cheaper, food's a little cheaper, and the city could use that economic bump. You look like a superhero, and that's part of our success model. We come in at a time of year where regions need us and say, okay, we know hotel occupancy is down, visitorship's down. Here's the program that we want to do, and here's what we expect it to do from a tourism standpoint. And then we take all of the assets that are specific to that area and we lift those up. If it's culinary, if it's tech and labor needs and stage and sound and labor, if it's trash removal, if it's marketing, we pull all of that out of the community that we just set in, and we do it with shows here and shows in the Carolinas that we did. And then we take the community itself and we let the community bolster, and then keep the revenue from that program in this market.
Yeah. I think the Live Nations kind of feels like they're too big to fail. They'll make it work wherever, whenever. You throw Blink out there, you throw a couple country headliners, and people will.
And that's it. And what's happening is you see it across the country is these big box music festivals that are $300, $400, $500, $1,000. There's no future in that. I will go on record and saying that will burn itself out. There is that consumer, this scamboozled consumer is a smarter consumer. They know what their dollar's worth. They know what it took to earn that dollar. And if I'm going to spend that dollar with you, I have expectations. And if you can make that expectation affordable, you're going to gain that fan and you're going to gain that customer by leaps and bounds. And that's kind of what, like, we've got some stuff in 2024 I'm very excited about. And it follows that model of affordability, fun, transparency, being transparent, and giving an attendee kind of what they're asking for versus cramming shit down their throats. And it doesn't have to be these monster fucking box festivals.
No, the bands are, people, they want to discover new bands and they want to, they want to see their headliners, right? But there's all these bigger bands, and even maybe not the top level, they have enough people who want to go see them that you'll sell tickets if it's the right act. It doesn't have to be Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift and Blink coming back. It's a phenomenon, but
in the right price point. The price point is it's keeping it. Every time I see a $300 ticket, or the thing that grosses me out, it just straight up grosses me out is hey, you can do a payment plan for your concert ticket. Like, what the fuck is a payment plan for a concert ticket? Like, it blows my mind.
I'll do it if I want to, but yeah, they're just wanting people to spend money that they wouldn't spend it all now if they couldn't, and then it's just like it's the same cost really. It costs $10,
but it's $10. They put a VIG on it, so they're making that ticket cost you more than they want you to finance that ticket.
Yeah, but it's not a lie. It's a good deal, but it's people almost buying something that they can't afford or shouldn't, and they know that. Do you do a price point if let's say you're going to throw a big one? You say I want it to be X amount of dollars, and then get the bands. You get the bands, and then say I have a good idea of what bands I want. Here's where I'm going to have to be because of that.
I know it's like the last couple of years of Outside, and with Adjacent being the weekend before us, we had to really kind of say, all right, well, we're normally that emo pop punk vibe. Let's switch it up a little bit because Adjacent just decided to drop down the week before us because they had the opportunity to get Blink 182 and Paramore that weekend. So they dropped right in front of us with no regard to an existing festival, right? That's what Live Nation does. They dropped it in and we're like, all right, well, we're going to have to make a switch. We're going to change, so, they're not going to change. They're not going to, they're the juggernaut in the market. So we're going to make that switch. And here's what we're going to do. And we're going to overspend a little bit because of it. And we have a budget line item for kind of what the acts where we want to be. And we go through, normally this board right here is covered in bands. So we go through it and we say, all right, it's a co-op. This festival should cost X, Y, and Z. Now, over the last 2 years, it's become, it's been less profitable because, everything has gone, our costs have gone up 3X, right?
Yeah.
But we still want to maintain that level of affordability. And we know over time, people are going to get used to the increases, but we're not one of those people that are like, here's your price increase.
Yeah.
No, we're going to
incremental.
Let's do that together. And we also, every program that we have, we phase tickets up. If you really want to be this show and you're familiar with what Good Time Tricycle has produced, that we're going to give you a quality program. So you have the opportunity to get in at, for like Beer Fest, $65. So all you can drink, huge concert, tons of activities, tons of things to do. They're all inclusive in a $65 ticket. There is not a better deal in New Jersey this year whatsoever, right? And now, our prices are up. Now we're at $75. It's $75 for your ticket. Still an amazing deal. Our ticket should be $120 by today's standards. It should be $120, and it's not.
Do you have next year's lineups narrowed down, or is that wait until after this year?
A wish list. I've got some agents coming out. It's funny, we get a lot of bookings from agents that we've worked with in the past because the bands have such a positive experience, and then that works because the band, everybody talks and they're like, oh, these guys were great to us. It was a fun festival to play. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We throw parties for a living. And if I took myself too seriously, if anybody who follows me on Instagram is like, this guy's as goofy as fuck. It's just, why, if I throw parties and festivals for a living, why take myself so seriously?
Oh, I agree.
There's a remedy in entertaining people, and constantly, like, I look at everything to an extent where there has to be showmanship. Everything should have showmanship.
Who would you book? You can book Saturday and Sunday, and budget's not a limit. They'll play for free. Who would you book?
That's a band. I mean, I've got so many.
I'm talking like the biggest band, like, if you could book a Blink and it wouldn't matter what the price, or you could book.
It definitely wouldn't be a Blink. It's funny because we ask it every year and then I book them. Weirdly enough, right? I literally every year we book. I think the Strokes would be a blast for us to have. Yeah. We've talked about Weezer, and Weezer's weirdly getting affordable. Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think Red Hot Chili Peppers, if it were for this festival specifically, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and weirdly, what's his name? Jack Johnson.
He's playing Sunfest too. They moved Dropkick to Saturday, and Jack's the headliner. He came down here last year at the amphitheater too.
Yeah, I mean, prior to this year, Dropkick Murphys would have been on that lineup. So Alkaline Trio probably would have made it to that lineup, right? So Coheed and Cambria is still up there as one of those bands that I'd love to bring to the festival. There's a bunch of them. I'd like to start kind of the Interrupters. I'd love to get more girl vibe bands in there. I'd love to, so I could go. I mean, this board is usually, like I said, full of stuff. That we talk about Cypress Hill all the time. Just kind of little things like that. We're always talking about kind of what's that next band, what's the next bands, and then as we talk about going back inside, that changes, and then outside, and you go with the spring summer sessions, the summer sessions, the fall session, and then other programs we're launching, in 2024 that are going to be super rad. So we're always talking about music because the soundtrack to your experience, whether it's a discovery experience or just as something that you have some attachment to because when you're in high school or your wedding, or I think music always plays a factor. Even into shitty cover bands to 311s, and I think when
I love cover bands. I'm a huge
good cover band.
Good cover band is I get a little bit of variety of everything because you might only like a couple songs from some of these bands anyway. Give me one event that's really well run outside of yours.
Outside of us.
You've been to that you go to. Maybe you've been to a bunch of times. Maybe you just been to before and you just said, "Wow."
I don't know if it's an event. It was more of a I mean, there's two. So I think South by Southwest is very well curated.
Okay.
Um, I think, and that's an evolution of 20 some years, right?
Yeah.
That's not curated overnight, right? That's knowing your audience and transforming a city based off of its need and economic impact.
And
So,
a little bit of everything, a
it,
festival, right? A trade show, a conference,
but it didn't start out like that.
Asian, right?
It didn't start out like that. With 10, that's not how it started. It evolved into, to my point. I love when you help me make my point. The consumer helped curate and orchestrate what that turned into, what that evolved into. So, that's a perfect example. I mean, it's well curated. The other, honestly, is Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza is curated very, very, very well. And if you look at the moving parts and how they move you through the experiences and the stages and the bands and the food and again, economic impact. There's something to be said. And both of these shows aren't Live Nation shows. Most of these shows are organically curated shows. C3 with Lollapalooza, the city of Austin for South by Southwest. They really helped curate those experiences.
Can you
You know,
bring your festival to another location? Is it a thought of yours?
so earlier
Outside of New Jersey, outside of New
so I think I spoke to this. I don't. It's not what we do. Each thing is its own thing, right? It's its own organism. Down south, we created experiences that are specific to down south. We did a tattoo and gun expo down south. Firearms and tattoos. It was called Ink and Arms. And that played kind of down south. So we'll curate stuff as it fits the region. I don't like to repeat things. I get bored easy. I get distracted by shiny things.
I mean, a beer and music festival in Florida.
No, there's already a beer and music festival in Florida. They don't need me to do it. If I come to Florida, I'm going to look for a gap. I'm going to look for something that excites me, right? And something that the market needs. The market has, like, anybody who's deciding, hey, we're going to start a beer festival this late into the game is making a tremendous mistake.
Yeah.
There's too many of them, right? So we look at kind of what are those next things. Our witchcraft event is kind of new and burgeoning. We've got this cool event that's coming up. We're really leaning into, the legalization of marijuana, right? And the opportunities for entertainment and discovery that poses in the upcoming years. We're looking at trends in lifestyle programs. We launched a big cigar program this year. I'm a cigar guy. And leaned into the cigar culture and kind of really, that was a great opportunity for learnings, being that some of the what's now traditional marketing avenues like Facebook and Instagram and blah 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 don't embrace that culture because it's tobacco centric. So figuring out how to advertise that, and so just kind of leaning into these things culturally that are kind of coming back up. The cocktail culture, the wine festival culture, the bottom fell out of it, and that's starting to peek its head out again. And we're going to play with that. So really, we don't recreate what we do. We always start something new because it's more exciting for us.
Yeah, I get that. I was always surprised that Live Nation, that I think there's going to be a competitor for Live Nation because I collect cards and tickets, and there's a grading. PSA was the grader, and it took them forever, and they were charging a lot. And Beckett comes in, and they start grading tickets, and it's faster and cheaper. And now all of a sudden, PSA somehow miraculously can do it cheaper and faster, right? The competition's there. I thought there's maybe an Amazon, maybe a Google, someone comes up with some type of ticketing. I never understand it, because Pearl Jam now is a Ticketmaster band, and they sued them 20 years ago, but now they don't care. And it's like, there's got to be venues and other things that if you're big enough, it doesn't matter. You don't need Ticketmaster in the way that people needed Ticketmaster before, but I guess we'll see.
I think, it has its place, right? It's going to have its place in history of what it is. At the end of the day, Ticketmaster can touch more consumers because more consumers buy tickets. So they have access to sell more tickets, right? So you said to me, this was kind of my going through the ticketing thing, right? When I was getting away from Ticketmaster and, the Eventbrites and the courting process. And I was like, well, how many consumers that are like-minded consumers can you put my product in front of to buy tickets? Nobody's got that reach. Nobody has the reach that Ticketmaster has. Nobody.
But it's easier now than it was 5 years ago, isn't it?
100%. Social media made that easier, made it more viable. But those ticket providers also put that onus on you, right? And my, back and forth with ticketing companies, like, well, if you're going to, and they always try to upsell you, well, we can upsell you on this advertising package. And I'm like, but you're going to sell those tickets and benefit from it. So Why don't you just do that?
I get that problem all the time.
Yeah, so
Don't
it's
get
like,
me started on that.
yeah, so it's like, well, you're riding my coattails to make money, but then you want more money to ride my coattails a longer distance to
But
make
at
more
some
money.
point, event sells itself. I mean, when the Heat got LeBron James, they fired their whole sales department. They didn't need to sell it. It was sold. That's it.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter who was selling. It didn't matter what you were using. And then you get to a point where you're pretty much going to get to this level. I don't know. I see it happening. Who knows? I don't. It bothers me more for the other fans, and and missing out on maybe some shows, but I get to see enough in this lifetime, and I'm grateful for the shows I do, because music and entertainment, it's a huge part of my life, and it's a happy place for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's and it's not lost on me that that's my role in life. Like, my lot in life is kind of bringing somebody some levels of joy, and I can send my kids to college and feed my family doing it.
There you go. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everybody gets. You can spend 24 hours with anybody in the world. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose, and what would you guys do?
Wow. I'm going to hang out and go motorcycle riding with Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, we're going to go motorcycle riding. We're probably going to shoot some guns, maybe do some ninja shit. But yeah, definitely riding motorcycle with Keanu Reeves is pretty much.
Are you a John Wick fan?
Ridiculous. I'm a Bill and Ted's fan. I'm I just like Keanu Reeves.
I've never seen John Wick. Did you see Almost My Maybe or something like that? The Netflix show where he made an appearance in?
No.
He's a cameo of himself.
Oh,
really
no. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I know what you're talking about. I did not.
Is that a wedding or something? You got to watch that scene. It's pretty hilarious. I think that's the first Keanu Reeves we got, but that's a hell of a choice.
Well, I mean, he's got his own motor. I'm a motorcycle guy. I'm as a recreational thing. I'm a endurance, long distance, motorcycle rider. I've ridden through Africa, I've ridden through, parts of Nicaragua, Canada, every fucking major road in the United States. I'm doing Alaska this year and Vietnam at the end of the year. And, he owns Arch Motorcycles, which is a small production motorcycle company out in California. He's a motorcycle enthusiast. I'm a motorcycle enthusiast. Dude's fun. Yeah.
Are you going to the Harley Davidson celebration? They got Foo Fighters and Green Day.
I saw it, and unfortunately, it's during the time that I'm doing my ride to Alaska this year.
That's a hell of an event too.
Yep.
Can't go wrong either way. Keanu Reeves, he's on the list. We're gonna try and make it happen someday, the same way we do for everyone on that list. I really appreciate your time. It's been great working with you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Check out acbeerfest.com for more information on first weekend in June. Beer, music, shenanigans, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. We got another episode this week, so stay tuned and have a great night. Thanks, John.